So my name is Randy Kono. I was born in Los Angeles, Kaiser actually, in Hollywood, and fourth generation Japanese American. My grandma was born in Hawaii, so her parents were first, right? That's how it works. Yeah, second, third, fourth. Yeah. So and I identify with my mom on my mom's side. That's why I say I'm fourth generation. My dad is first generation, so on his side, I guess I'm second generation. But again, I didn't even grow up with him, so I do identify with being a fourth generation. I grew up with a single mother. My father left us before I was one. That's why I never really even knew him. He didn't come back around until I think I think he came around once or twice when I was younger, but I don't really even remember those. What I really remember is him coming back was when I was around 12, I think, which is a long time to go without a father, right? A father is so important to a growing boy. I think as an adult, I think a lot about the ways that growing up without a father affected me, not only back then, but as an adult now. And I think it has affected me in a lot of ways. A lot of ways that I'm still trying to figure out. But like I was saying, he did coming back into my life maybe 10 years or so ago, and it's not like on a consistent basis still. I think that's just kind of the person he is. He like pops up and then he doesn't know how to stay in touch really, but every now and then we'll talk. He actually paid for my wife and I's honeymoon to Japan. I mean, probably because it was Japan and he really wanted me to go there. So that was nice. I mean, I think that was also not a way for him to kind of connect with me, because we would be going to see him a lot, kind of to plan the trip. But then after the trip, like again, he kind of like fell away. I know it's a two-way street. Like I need to keep in touch with him too. But I think him being the father, he needs to try harder than I do.
Did you grow up with a lot of Asians?
I had friends that looked like me. I had a lot of friends that didn't look like me. It was very diverse. So growing up in the San Gabriel Valley was great, especially in Monterey Park. Going to the elementary school that I went to, having the friends that I had, they were all really great. Actually, yeah, I'm still friends with people. At least 5 or 6 guys that I was friends with since I was 6 years old.
Did you experience the 1990s Asian gang culture?
So that's later after elementary school. And as a matter of fact, I kind of did. I hung out with some of them. I never like was, jumped in or whatever, and I never was actually in a gang. But I did definitely hang out with some of those guys, and I was in situations where it was dangerous. Like I remember one time, I think it was West Covina. We were driving around. I don't know. I don't remember the exact situation. All I remember was some guys alongside of us or something and pulling a gun. That's all I remember. I don't know if we like drove away. I don't remember what happened after that, but I do remember it was probably because of the guys I was with. And there was other times where we kind of got into trouble, but again, I was never a full-fledged gangster, but I also was not like completely out of that. So I think growing up, or in the San Gabriel Valley around those kind of people, it's easy to kind of fall in to that unless you're like a jock or you're like really smart and doing those kind of things. But I wasn't either, so I guess it was easier for me to kind of find those people or like fall in with those people.
Has growing up as a latchkey kid affected you?
I mean, I definitely as a youngster got into drugs. Certain drugs, not all crazy drugs, but I think especially growing up in a one-parent household, and that parent was working a lot. So like you said, I was left up to my own craziness or devices. But before that, though, before I got into that, I was almost literally a latchkey kid in elementary school because I would walk home, but it would be my auntie's home. And sometimes she wouldn't be there. So I would just go in by myself and probably have a snack and then head back down to the park to go play with my friends from school. So that part was nice and it was good. But yeah, later on in life, because of the minimal, I guess, supervision, yeah, I did get into a lot of trouble, I would say. Like I hardly was even at high school when I was in high school. I was usually ditching because it was just too easy.
What inspired your admiration of Malcolm X?
Wow, what did inspire that? Basically, in high school, I wanted to be black because I thought they were so cool. I was so into the hip hop culture and the way they dressed and the way they danced. I just thought they were so cool. So I just embraced that culture like crazy, and that's how I got into Malcolm X. That's how I got into dressing the way that I was back then. I guess you could call it an identity crisis. But it is a big part of my childhood. And yeah, I think that's just the way I got into it. It was the hip hop culture. I was really into the music and just the culture.
Experience with school?
Well, first, I never did good in school, ever. Not even in elementary school. Like, I barely graduated elementary school. I actually dropped out of high school and took like independent study or whatever, got my GED through there. And then after that, I think I just went to Pasadena City College and I was just aimless and just floating around taking classes that kind of interested me. Remember some of the first classes I took were mostly art classes. I didn't know what I wanted to do for a very long time. So I was just like aimlessly going to PCC. I think eventually I decided that I wanted to go to the art center up in Pasadena. So I tried to put a portfolio together and I applied, and then I was rejected, which was a blessing in disguise to me because I would have been in like massive student debt and I'm already not good with money. Not yet. Thank you. So after I was rejected from art center, I made up these little postcards. I drew them up and then I just took them to this one art show that I went to and I left them there. And I was lucky enough that someone picked it up, and that person was a curator, owner of this gallery in downtown actually, called the Hive Gallery, and he emailed me and asked me if I wanted to be in a show. And that was the first art show I was in. That's how I got into the scene, I guess. So I got into that gallery and I started doing shows there and I started meeting a bunch of other artists, and I basically learned from them. And I saved myself $80,000 to $100,000 for art school fees, because the main reason I wanted to go to art school was just to be surrounded with that creative energy and to soak it up and be inspired by it, and I found that at the Hive Gallery.
When did you start your passion for art?
Yeah, I remember I was cleaning and I found these really old drawings. I must have been 8 or something. So I know I've been drawing since I was a kid. I think I get my creative side actually from my father. Because my mom and her side, there's nobody that's really creative. Actually, other than my auntie, but my dad can draw. He can play music. And I know I have uncles on his side that were artists and stuff. So I know I get it from his side. So grateful for that, for sure.
Creation for the Harshmallows?
As an artist, I've always I love anthropomorphism. I always love to take something and turn it into a character. I've done several groups of characters. Like when I first started trying to do characters, it was this weird bear type character. And I kind of did a lot of those, but that was mainly when I was just painting. After that, when I started sculpting, I got into a phase where I was just doing all birds. A lot of fan art, I don't know, a character from Star Wars as a bird, basically. So after I got all that out of my system, I was like, I wanted to come up with a new group of characters. And basically, the Harshmallows, it all started with just the name, the Harshmallows. I thought it was a funny play on the word. Well, I mean, it's marshmallows that are like harsh and they're angry. So it's just kind of like a play on those kind of words. I sculpted one little marshmallow guy and I liked it. And I sculpted another one and I liked it. And eventually they grew arms and legs. And then eventually I started developing their characteristics and trying to develop a story. Yeah, I also think the contrast or I guess juxtaposition of a soft, sweet marshmallow and then the angry, harsh side is funny, and it also applies to me because I'm a Gemini, so I can be very sweet, but I could also get very angry. So it kind of, in that sense, it's really personal for me. I never, like I said, never did good in school. I don't know why. I just, some school is for some people and it's not for some people. It wasn't for me. I think it was probably the topics because I took a sculpture class once and I did excellent in that class. So, I figured it just has to be the topic that I'm interested in. If it is, then I could do really well. But school didn't have any of those topics.
Can you show us some of your creations?
So I brought mainly, I'm going to start with this guy because he's a Harshmallow. And that's my main thing. This is, he's not a real specific one. This is kind of similar to the ones that I first started doing. He's hand sculpted, hand painted. A lot of people, I should have brought one with the teeth because a lot of people comment and love the eyes and the teeth of my characters. When I hand sculpt them, I use a translucent clay for the eyes and the teeth, which gives it a really realistic look. I really like to go for believability in my work. Like this guy, I feel like you could look at him and you could imagine him like talking to you at any second because it does look really real. So most of these characters that I'm going to show right now, this is a little wasabi character, actually a little wasabi root. Most of these guys, or like all of these guys actually came out of me after I went to Japan. I was so inspired by the trip that I had to get all this Japanese inspired art out of me. This is another one of my side characters. These are the Stumpies. The way that these guys play into the universe is one of my main Harshmallow characters. His power is that he could control and manipulate water and he could bring dead tree stumps back to life. The Harshmallows are kind of supposed to be guardians of the forest and they all have specific powers that are associated with one of the 5 earth elements. That's why the leader is Winston. His earth element is water. So I don't know, that's how the Stumpies come into the picture anyway, because Winston kind of brings them back to life. When I do shows, I get so many comments about the expressions of my characters. Like, I feel like that's my specialty, is the expressions. Mainly, this is my first children's book. It's for children. And I wanted it to be a book that kind of helps children learn how to express themselves. Yeah, my first book, my plan is to make 2 more, each book being more narrative.
Thoughts on traditional school system?
The school system, they teach, I think it's like old. Like, I think they need to update what they teach, right? Like, there's no classes that teach about money. Like, why? That's so important. So that said, like, I think it's really cool when people homeschool their kids because they could literally figure out exactly what they want their kids to learn.
How did you meet your beautiful wife?
I met her at the Hyatt Gallery, actually. Yeah, so that place has a really special place in my heart. She's an artist, so she was showing there, and one of my artist friends at the Hyatt introduced us. It was very casual. I had a space that I was a resident at the time, and I told her, yeah, I have a space, and she's like, oh yeah, let's go see it. And I was like, oh cool. And that, for some reason, it impressed me because in this town, people are such flakes. People are such, like, masks and stuff. Like, you tell them you have a space and they'll be like, oh, that's cool, I'll go check it out. And then they never check it out. But she was like, so like right there and then and there, she wanted to check it out. And to me, that came off as really, really genuine, which is something that's hard to come by, I feel like, in LA.
Thoughts on Asian American segregation?
Yeah, I was just talking to my wife about this yesterday. I was just talking about how interesting it is that LA or Southern California has so many different city or areas, like, little Tokyo, little Saigon, like so many, right? So it's interesting, but how to get them to come together more? Whoa, that hmm. I'm kind of stumped there. Jeez. I'm Asian and I don't really just stick with my Asian, but I know there are a lot of people who do. I feel like it's the older generation though, like you were saying. So I think maybe I'm not sure there's necessarily any one or specific thing that can be done in terms of bringing more of the different Asian people together. I think it might just take time and newer generations that are more open-minded to that, or like less focused on just like, this specific ethnicity or ethnic group.
Why did you accept our invitation to be interviewed?
Because I'm super down for this cause. Like I'm very impressed and happy that you're doing this. During COVID, I don't know if you remember the whole, Stop Asian Hate movement. I got pretty into that. We went to a couple of protests and things. So yeah, I'm super down for the cause. That's why I was willing or wanting to do this.
Why did Stop Asian Hate get less attention and support?
From Asians specifically is because we're Asians and we're, the model minority. We're taught to not make noise and not do that, not speak up for ourselves. I think a lot of that is still ingrained into every Asian culture. I feel like there's just some things that, like they say, silence is complicity, right? Like if you don't say or do anything about the wrongs in the world, then you're kind of not really supporting it, but by not doing anything, you're kind of, you're saying it's okay, kind of, to me. That's why I got into it.
What can we do to better support one another?
Wow. I mean, I think just people need to love each other more and be more understanding, and put yourself into other people's shoes. I always go back to these quotes and sayings, but everyone's fighting a battle that you know nothing about. I think keeping those kind of things in mind, and just be more compassionate.
What brings you hope for the Asian American community?
Going to those protests, it renews hope to see so many people out there kind of feeling and thinking the same thing that you're. There's so many like-minded folks out there. It's very inspiring and encouraging.
How about an Asian American role model?
Younger, like when I was a really young boy, when people ask you what you want to be when you grow up, my answer was I wanted to be a ninja. So there's this guy named Kosugi, something like that. He was an actor who did like a series of these ninja movies. I loved that guy. That guy was a role model for me, when I was a really little kid.
If you could sit down with any Asian American, who would it be?
Maybe the Dalai Lama. I was into Buddhism for a while. A lot into Buddhism for a while. And I actually went to see him speak a couple times, and both times, like, you don't just see him, you don't just hear him, you feel him. Yeah. So I think I'm not as much into Buddhism nowadays, but I think it would be really nice to sit down with him.
Tell us about your grandma.
My grandma, everyone loves my grandma. She's just the cutest little thing. I'm pretty sure that I was her favorite, and I'm not just saying that. I don't really had time to grieve. Like, I gave myself time to grieve her passing. Like, I remember, yeah, okay, so the main thing that I remember about my grandma, which I think a lot of people remember about their grandmas, is the food. Like, she would pick us up from high school and take us back home, and she would make us these elaborate lunches. Um, yeah, she was always so kind. She was a typical, old school Japanese lady that never wanted me, being the boy, to do anything, to lift a finger, right? She would do every single thing for me. Um, One thing about my grandma, and I don't think it was ever really malicious, but for her, like, you could never do anything right. I know this is to honor her and I'm not trying to talk down, but I think that, for example, like, oh, let me help you, let me do some, you don't know how to do that, just get out of here. But that's a lot of grandmas, right? And it's not malicious, but I think that kind of thinking transferred eventually to my mom, which then transferred to me. And, in my later years and into adulthood, there's a lot of times where I feel like I can't do anything right. And I think that stems from that. Her history was horrible, actually. Her and my grandpa's history were very horrible. I don't I don't I don't want to get any part of it wrong, but I know, I believe my grandma like grew up with her uncle, I think, who beat her. Um, and then I also remember a story about, um, I think it was I don't know if it was my grandma's father or my grandpa's father, but when they got together, I think I just vaguely remember some story about them running away from one of their fathers that was gonna like shoot them or something like that. They had, I know she had a lot of trauma, um, growing up. I know she was very lonely. My grandpa as well. I think he was taken away from his mother at a really young age and brought to the States. I hope I'm not getting any of this wrong. But yeah, that's what I remember. I know, after my grandma's childhood and all that trauma, like, she was also, in the concentration camps, the Japanese concentration camps, which is wildly traumatic, I'm sure. She would tell me, and I'm so grateful for what the things that she did tell me, because I think most old school Japanese, but especially the ones that were in the camps, they are like, they don't want to talk, they just want to forget about it, I think, and not ever talk about it. But she told me some things. She told me about how they were first taken to the Santa Anita horse tracks, and they were like kept in the horse stalls before they were like thrown on a train and taken to God knows where. They had no idea where they were going, right, or what was going to happen when they got there. And they were sent to Heart Mountain in Wyoming, and she would tell me how cold it was there. It would be snowing with snow up to here, and she would be walking through. And when they first got there, you're not supposed to take anything in there. But she had like baby powder formula or something, and she wanted to take it in because she didn't know. You don't know anything what's going to happen, right? You want food for your baby. So I think she hid it somewhere in the stroller, and as she was going in, she was just like horrified that she was going to be caught, and she didn't know what would happen to her if she was caught. She told me things like that. Yeah, those are the specific things that I remember. I'm waiting for like an epic movie about the Japanese concentration camps. There needs to be.
Thank you, Randy Kono. Any last message?
Well, I just want to thank you for not only coming up with and doing this project and seeing it through. I know we're all involved. Like you say, it's all our project. And I agree. But thank you for starting it, and thank you for having me be a part of it.